as you hear the questioning, with Cyrus kind of thinking, I know how to do this. I know how to deal with my body. But then all of a sudden, this thing is throwing everything sideways. How do you coach the mindset around CGM?
Yeah. Well, it's very difficult. I mean, because the conversations we've been having are basically like, Cyrus is like handing it over. He's like, I'm not dealing with this anymore. You do it. You look at this. You tell me what I'm doing. And it's really frustrating. And I don't know, in our personal life. Okay. So kind of to back up a little bit, for the time that I've known Cyrus, he's been doing all blood glucose monitoring, and it's been very predictable and it's felt very safe. And there's been many, many, many reasons why I never really pushed hard for the CGM, because we felt everything was very easy. It felt very simple. And one of the things that I've experienced with this change is that it's made the process of blood glucose management, the discussions have been so much harder. Like, it's hard for me to know what to say to him other than, well, did you check your actual blood glucose? And then I feel like, again, as a partner, am I bugging him, or that and so I feel like the decision-making, the fact that insulin or, for type 1 diabetes, insulin injection is not reliable on that information, on that data, just complicates the situation so much more. And I think the coaching really comes down to maybe a little bit of patience, stepping into the experimental mindset where we're going to try it on for a little bit. Let's see where it is working for us. How is this information serving us? Where are we finding it to be useful? Like, asking those kinds of questions for ourselves. And my answer truly comes down to, I'm happy if we're just using it at night. We unfortunately have experienced times where blood glucose has dropped overnight, where we don't have any alert for that. And it's scary to me, especially considering, we have a daughter. When it was just the two of us, it felt like a little bit easier to manage that overnight hypoglycemia. And even if I'm having to offer support to Cyrus now with a third person in the house, it does bring up that challenge. And so the coaching, or maybe how I would approach the coaching aspect of that would be, where is this serving you? Where is this technology getting you something positive? Where is the information being useful for you? And if there's not a point in the day where it's useful, then maybe it's not the right technology right now at this time. Maybe it's not the right piece of equipment for us. But overnight, if it beeps at us when you're becoming hypoglycemic, even if you're getting a false reading at that time, I'm okay with that. I'd rather be falsely alarmed than risk not having been alarmed at all on overnight hypoglycemia, right? So I'd say that in terms of learning, it's one thing to experiment with this and learn something. And if what we're learning is that this is just too frustrating and our system before was much better and much happier for our lifestyle, then that's okay. But is there a place for this device? Is there a place for this equipment and technology somewhere? And for some people, I've worked with a lot of people who've used the CGM, and they love it because, for example, the trend lines can be very informative, right? So sometimes it'll hold people a little bit more accountable to some of the green light activities. Like, oh, well, when I walk after my meal, I really do see my blood glucose going. I can see it. It's like proof that this is really working. And for me, that feels good. So I'm going to keep wearing it for that reason, right? It just holds me a little more accountable to my activities and my green light choices. But in our lives with me and Cyrus, I'm not sure that this device is going to be the best thing for our marriage during the daytime hours.
Well said. That's what it all boils down to. Am I bothering you too much? That's really.
Yeah, exactly. I can't handle you yelling at that thing anymore. But again, I think that people have to, I think that's important for people to evaluate, like just because you were prescribed this piece of equipment, which by the way, I could go into a whole other conversation about how somebody with type 1 diabetes was denied multiple times access to this device. I mean, that to me, the whole insurance situation was just, I could go down a whole path on that, but I won't. But it's just another challenge. But just because you're prescribed this equipment, is this equipment really giving you the right information? And the other thing about that, and I don't, I want to, of course, bring this back to the conversation, but you can replicate what a CGM is showing you through blood glucose monitoring. It takes a little bit more effort and it can be causing, you have to do more finger sticks, but you can gather information about your blood glucose trending using blood glucose technology and not using CGM technology.
You can. You absolutely can.
And we've done that with some of our, with some of our clients are happy with their blood glucose meter and they'll just test that out a little bit sometimes.
Okay. So I think you bring up a lot of really good points there, Kylie. So let me chime in here to give the backstory of what you were talking about using the CGM as a monitor at night. It's an insurance policy while you're sleeping. Okay. So the number one value that the Libre 3 has brought to my life, and I will give credit where credit is due, no question, is that the Libre 3 is a device that warns me if my blood glucose is dropping low in the middle of the night. There's two different alarms that you can set on it. Number one is when your blood glucose hits the low glucose threshold, which is at 70, and I've actually increased it to being 80 milligrams per deciliter. And then the second one is when your blood glucose is critically low at 55. You cannot turn that alarm off. So effectively, if your blood glucose is dropping and you happen to sleep through your first alarm and then it gets to 55, it'll trigger a second alarm and then hopefully that one will wake you up, right? So this is a complete lifesaver because I've been wearing it for 2 months. And the number one reason why we got the CGM technology on me in the first place was because I was going low at night, okay? And so there was an episode back in San Francisco back in, I'm trying to remember, was it 2016 maybe, Kylie?
14.
2015? 14. Where for people living with type 1 diabetes, this is like an absolute nightmare scenario. I inject Lantus at night before I go to sleep on purpose because that's what I've been doing for the past 15 years. And it's a way to make sure that the Lantus that I inject is maximally effective in the middle of the night to keep my blood glucose controlled while I'm sleeping, okay? So I give myself approximately 11 units of Lantus at about 9 o'clock p.m., at about 10 o'clock p.m., and then I usually hit the sack maybe 30 to 40 minutes later, okay? One night after we had friends come over for dinner, Kylie was in the bathroom getting ready for bed, and I went to the fridge to go pull out 11 units of Lantus, and I injected it. The problem was that I injected 11 units of Humalog on accident.
Which is short-acting
Lauren's
insulin.
face. She knows exactly what that means. Humalog is fast-acting insulin. Lantus is slow-acting basal insulin. So I gave myself 11 units of very powerful, rapid-acting insulin, thinking that I was giving myself 11 units of slow-acting, not so powerful insulin. And then I didn't eat any food because why would you eat food before bed? Go.
Yeah. For some context, that's the mealtime insulin. So normally, even with a very large meal of, fruits and a smoothie bowl, things that you're eating with a lot of carbohydrate, normally you would inject somewhere between 2 and 5 units for a meal, even a very large meal of carbohydrate-rich foods. So you're talking a double and a half of, or possibly 3 times what you would normally even take, even for a meal during the day. So
that's exactly right. Exactly right. The largest meal I will ever eat is usually somewhere around 6 units of insulin, but most of the time it's like 4 is my maximum. So I gave myself effectively 2.5 to 3 times the amount of insulin that I would normally give myself with a large meal, and I did it, and then I went to sleep. So Kylie wakes up in the middle of the night because I am seizing. I'm not just like kind of moving around and kind of sweating. I am literally having a seizure, which I'd never had in my entire life. I was flailing my arms and my legs like I had never done before, and I'm completely blacked out. I don't even know this is happening. Okay, I'm sweating big time, and then she wakes up immediately and recognizes exactly what the problem is. She gets up, she goes straight over to the nightstand. She pulls out a syringe of glucagon. She goes to prepare it. And glucagon is basically anti-insulin because I was so low that she needed something that rapid and that fast. She then goes and gets the glucagon needle, sticks it into my quadricep, and I am moving so erratically that she was only able to get about half of the glucagon injection into my leg before I kicked it out of my leg. I kicked it out of her hand, and as a result of that, it helped my glucose come up a little bit. She gets on the phone, she calls 911. Get over here right now. My husband is having a very low blood glucose, and they arrive within 20 minutes or so. At the time that they arrived, after injecting half of a syringe of glucagon, after having fed, like literally put agave nectar straight into my mouth with a bottle, just like pumping it into the side of my mouth, and also feeding me a bunch of raisins to try and increase my glucose quickly. After all of that, 20 minutes down the road, the paramedics arrive, they check my blood glucose. I'm at a 23. Okay. I mean, I'm talking like it's very dangerous. And here's the thing, I haven't told this story to anybody. So like being able to talk about this on this podcast is like a little bit, it's like hard for me to do. But the truth is that number one, Kylie saved my life. If it wasn't for Kylie, I would be dead. That's how important this decision, this like mistake was. But number two, this exact scenario is why CGMs can be so powerful, right? Because if I was wearing a CGM at that time, it would have alarmed her that I was going down, and then she would have been able to act quicker before my blood glucose got to like dangerously low levels, right? So that's a really good thing, and I'm happy to be wearing the CGM at night. So the solution, just like Kylie had recommended, is that I turn off the CGM during the day so that it doesn't piss me off, and I turn the CGM on at night. And that as a result of that, I'm able to sleep with more confidence. Kylie can sleep with more confidence. And Indigo can sleep with more confidence, even though she doesn't know it yet.